Breaking news, a local company fined over $1 million for failing to dispose dangerous medical waste. The findings by the Attorney General and the action the company is now taking. Columbia, Maryland, one of the safest cities in America, now sees a deadly shooting.
To hear that happen, it's disheartening.
I'm afraid. You know, it's too much going on.
What investigators have learned so far. Then a resolution passed in Baltimore to address juvenile crime. But is it enough? The criticism over the new plan and how one council member is defending it.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
This is a live look at the U.S. Capitol right now, everybody, where representatives are still trying to name a new speaker. The Republican nominee, Jim Jordan, called for a vote earlier today, but failed to get the 217 votes he needs to win that seat. Jordan has been meeting with the 20 Republicans who held out, trying to win their support. He can only afford to lose 3 votes from his party if he wants to keep the speakership. Another vote is expected today. We will continue to update this story on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We're following multiple counties under pressure tonight as Baltimore suburbs are reeling from a string of violent crimes. In the past 24 hours, at least 2 people have been killed and another 6 are injured across 3 communities. In Baltimore County, a man was stabbed late last night. Police responded to a scene in Essex just after 10. They found a 63-year-old victim who later died at the hospital.
In Anne Arundel County, 4 people were shot at a Severance shopping center. That happened around 8:40 at Reese Road and Pioneer Drive. Police say a group of suspects fired shots at the victims while they were standing in front of a store. Their injuries are not life-threatening. And after being named one of the safest cities in the country, a fatal shooting has some Columbia residents questioning their security.
Yeah, last night, gunfire outside of a Columbia gas station left 1 person dead, 2 injured, and a quiet community on edge. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has the latest for us on the investigation and shares concerns from residents today. Rebecca?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, just this month, a Wallet Hub study ranked Columbia, Maryland as the 2nd safest city in America for the 2nd year in a row. It's something that residents here are now questioning after last night's fatal shooting. Police say shots were fired around 10 p.m. at this Exxon gas station located along Fordland Garth Road. Upon arrival, investigators found 1 man suffering a gunshot wound while 2 others took themselves to the hospital. Police say 2 of those victims sustained critical injuries but are expected to survive. The 3rd victim was pronounced dead at the hospital. He has since been identified as 24-year-old Baltimore City resident Miguel Perez. Now, based on preliminary evidence, police say they do not believe that this was a random shooting. However, residents I spoke with say their sense of security is still shaken.
To hear that happen, it's disheartening.
This is a very nice neighborhood. You know, you could come to the gas station, don't have to worry anything. Now, I'm afraid. You know, it's too much going on.
It remains unclear what led up to this shooting, and so far no arrests have been made. Anyone with any information in the case is asked to call the Howard County Police Department. They're currently offering a $5,000 reward for anyone with any information that could lead to an arrest. Reporting live in Howard County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. 2 people were injured and 1 killed in 2 Baltimore shootings early this morning. The first was at 2 a.m. on Russell Street near M&T Bank Stadium. The second at 4 a.m. in Northwest Baltimore. The Northwest shooting left 1 woman dead, and the 2 Russell Street victims are being treated for their injuries right now. And according to city police, there have been 218 homicides and 520 non-fatal shootings in Baltimore this year. And while these numbers are down from last year, Baltimore is struggling to deal with the rise in youth violence.
Last night, members of the Baltimore City Council passed a resolution to address juvenile crime, but some critics say that resolution is not a solution. Alexa Ashwell is live right now with concern that not enough is being done to address the city's youth crime crisis. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, while that resolution passed, it will be at least 30 days before a meeting even happens. And even then, what real solutions may come out of it? The 15-year-old now charged with the attempted murder of a 12-year-old, leading to new questions. including how and where the teen got the gun and the details of another crime he's accused of committing. When announcing his arrest, police confirmed the teen was already in the custody of Juvenile Services for unrelated gun charges.
We cannot keep ignoring this.
Just yesterday, after being introduced by Baltimore City Councilman Robert Stokes, members of City Council passed a resolution that calls certain agencies to the table, including police and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE, to discuss juvenile crime, the drivers, and solutions. But critics argue there should be less talk and more action.
We've been talking about these problems for a long time. Where's the meat?
Political analyst John Deedy says there's little meat in a resolution. Exactly a month ago tomorrow, Councilman Zeke Cohen introduced a resolution that aimed to address the alarming spike in car thefts across the city.
I think it takes an approach where everybody is at the table.
But those agencies have yet to come to the table. And since then, the number of auto thefts has jumped from about 7,400 to more than 8,800. That's 1,411 more cases, victims, since the resolution was introduced.
It's the appearance of action. We're going to do something. We're going to have a meeting.
Last month, some lawmakers in Annapolis faced similar backlash. Members of the House Judiciary Committee called DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi to the table to discuss juvenile crime and the laws many prosecutors argue serve as roadblocks to holding young people accountable.
They have, from now until January, to have a bill on the table to say, here's what we're going to do.
Back in Baltimore, some local leaders pushing back on the notion a resolution has no teeth.
The resolution provides an opportunity for agencies to share what they have been doing, the successes and areas of improvement, and then also it prepares us council members as we kind of approach forward towards budget season.
But when will meetings translate to change as youth continue to commit and fall victim to violence here in Baltimore?
People want to see more than meetings.
Now, Stokes says he wants to allow each agency at least 30 days to prepare. A date has not yet been set. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Now, the council has called for informational hearings in the past, including in the wake of the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Rarely have those hearings led to concrete policy change. When it comes to public safety, more than 300 action items have come before the council this year. Only 2 have been adopted.
Every member of the city council has a responsibility to the citizens to look deep into these problems and not just talk about them, but actually figure out why things are broken inside of the city and come up with solutions to fix those problems.
That brings us to our question of the day. Does the city council need to do more to address juvenile crime? That poll just opened. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
And state lawmakers also facing questions about their handling of the juvenile crime crisis. We've heard from more than a dozen top prosecutors across Maryland who say their hands are tied. They represent 5.4 million people, about 87% of Maryland's population. Now, they're taking issue with 2 laws, one limiting the charges that children 13 and under can face. The other prevents police from questioning juvenile suspects without attorney and parent permission.
Seeing like a revolving door, the same juvenile offenders over and over again, coming in the door and then going back out the door to continue to engage in their nefarious activities. There's not a whole lot we can do about it because we're hamstrung by the laws that are in place.
You can protect the child and also protect society. If we deter that communication, we inhibit our ability to address crime.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
And it is not just prosecutors. Michelle Hines' family was torn apart when their 16-year-old son, Isaiah Carter, was shot and killed in Baltimore this March. Now she's coming to Fox 45 News saying something needs to change.
If he has to be a martyr, that's going to be on my terms because I'm fighting to make sure there's some change in his name. Given society is really confusing now, but when we were at that age, we knew right from wrong. They know right from wrong. The difference is now we've given them this leeway of, I can keep being wrong.
Fox 45 News has sent questions to Governor Moore's office on the juvenile crime crisis. We asked, when will Governor Moore enact changes surrounding juvenile justice? And why is he waiting for the legislature to begin in January to act? The governor's office responded, saying his administration is committed to explore all possible options to curb the gun violence epidemic. But the reply didn't directly answer our questions about the legislature possibly passing juvenile crime laws before the next legislative session. If you'd like to contact your state lawmakers about public safety, House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. Their phone numbers and email addresses are on your screen.
And breaking today, former owners of a Baltimore company plead guilty to dozens of criminal violations.
Maryland's Attorney General says Curtis Bay Energy, which operates the largest medical waste incinerator in the country, must pay nearly $2 million in fines for harming the environment, the South Baltimore community, and threatening public health.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson joins us live with what we're learning about this case and this company. Amy?
Yeah, so Mary Kai, you know those red bags, those red trash cans, you often see them in hospitals or doctors' offices, even those containers labeled biohazard. That's what this case is all about. And today, Maryland's Attorney General says a former previous ownership at Curtis Bay Energy, they improperly disposed of that medical waste for a period of time. Take a listen to what we learned today. State officials saying this investigation spanned 3 years, and investigators noted a systemic, unsafe handling of transport and disposal of medical waste that was, quote, insufficiently incinerated. This facility reportedly takes in medical waste from multiple states and Canada. It's located in South Baltimore. The AG said because special medical waste carries the risk of transmitting diseases, it must be reduced to ash before it's disposed of. But today, investigators said employees would overload the incinerators to process that medical waste faster, sometimes at the direction of previous management.
They regularly fail to properly burn or incinerate or treat the medical waste. Instead, as you see in our evidence photos, they dispose of the medical waste as mounds of raw or uncooked medical waste.
Employees regularly observed insufficiently burned special medical waste such as red bags, surgical gloves, medical supplies, bedding, and more.
Now, today, investigators said they documented this company illegally transporting raw medical waste to commercial landfills in Virginia. At times, investigators said that medical waste leaked from these trucks while they were en route to those landfills. The AG said investigators witnessed these criminal violations in the weeks leading up to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Amy, it's kind of hard to look at some of that video. We learned Curtis Bay Energy was purchased by new owners in early 2021. What do we know about the fines and punishment handed down to the previous ownership and previous leadership?
Yeah, Mary, you can imagine some pretty serious violations there, so pretty serious consequences. In addition to 2 years of probation, the sentence handed down by a judge, Curtis Bay Energy was ordered to pay nearly $2 million in fines. That's $1 million to the Maryland Clean Water Fund. The company also ordered to set up a $750,000 environmental fund to protect those South Baltimore communities around this facility. And so far, one former employee has pleaded guilty in this case, and court proceedings for the facility plant manager are still underway. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. In a statement, Curtis Bay Energy pointed out the violations were committed while the company was under different ownership. Its new managers say they fully cooperated with the state's investigation. The company also promised to do more in terms of preventative measures to prevent illegal dumping in the future.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars going towards the security teams for some members of the General Assembly. A closer look at who's it for and how it affects the budget.
A Baltimore City Schools police officer promoted while under investigation by the FBI. The charges that officer is facing and why the school system promoted him anyway.
I'm Christine Frizzau on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers weigh the best response toward Iran as leaders there issue a threat of their own.
And a crisp afternoon. If you're going to be getting that lawn mowed, not a big deal with just a couple of patchy clouds. Could see an outside chance of a sprinkle, but really nothing that should stop you. Temperatures falling through the 60s into the 50s. I'll let you know when highs could be in the 70s again, though. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
We continue our coverage tonight on the war in Israel. More rockets were fired at Ashkelon, Israel this morning. The city near the Gaza Strip has been a consistent target of the attacks from Hamas.
Meantime, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is getting worse by the hour. Israel's airstrikes have devastated the territory. The World Food Program warns that shops in Gaza will run out of food in less than a week. While there are storehouses in Gaza that could extend food supplies, damaged infrastructure is making it impossible to distribute.
President Biden is set to visit Israel tomorrow. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says some of the goals of the trip include showing America's commitment to Israel and its security, talking with Israeli leaders to figure out what the country needs, and determining the best way to help civilians in Gaza.
And all this comes as Israel is preparing a ground assault on Gaza. The Israeli Defense Force saying the operation is to eliminate Hamas and rescue hostages the terrorist group took during its initial attack.
The Gaza Health Ministry now reports more than 2,750 Palestinians have been killed. Another 9,700 are injured. Israeli officials say their death toll is more than 1,400, the majority of those deaths coming from Hamas's initial assault on Israel earlier this month.
And as President Biden heads to Israel following a pledge of full support, some on Capitol Hill want him to be more clear about what that means for Iran. National correspondent Christine Frizzell reports.
As Israeli troops prepare for a potential ground war in Gaza, a new threat from Iran. Warning the resistance forces will lose their patience. No one will be able to stop them at that point. It's just the latest show of support from Iran to Hamas. This video, released by the Israeli Defense Forces, shows a cache of weapons left behind in Israel by Hamas militants, which some weapons experts say have clear links to Iran.
Iran not only funds the terrorists, they feed the terrorists, they arm the terrorists, they plan the terrorist attacks.
On Capitol Hill, a group of Republicans calling for the White House to do more, though top leaders, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and President Biden himself, have vowed full support to Israel.
What is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran? Don't come across the border. Don't escalate this war. That's right.
Some senators say he hasn't gone far enough.
I'm begging the Biden administration to be clear. Just don't say don't. Spell out what happens if Hezbollah is used by Iran to try to expand this war and destroy Israel.
GOP lawmakers told us they want the U.S. to completely cut off any funding from coming into Iran. But they also want the Biden administration to give a more forceful response. We asked if that could include U.S. military involvement.
I don't think you take any option off the table. I think you have to be prepared to respond.
With Hamas launching more rockets toward Israel, and Israel's attacks already decimating Gaza, the cost of war is now on full display. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Former President Trump says he's being railroaded by the partial gag order imposed against him in his D.C. trial. The order places no restrictions on Trump's political speech. It does limit what he can say about the judge, prosecutors, and witnesses in the trial. The trial is scheduled to begin March 4th.
And we are getting rid of our latest weather maker with some of the clouds and sprinkles that we've been dealing with, well, really yesterday and today. A warming trend is going to be on the way in between systems. Then the next weather maker comes for the weekend, Friday into Saturday. That could be followed by another cool down in time for the Ravens game on Sunday and beyond. In the background here, this is our traffic camera network. You see the Beltway on the north side right around Towson moving by pretty easily. A little bit of a slowdown there on the inner loop. 63, mostly cloudy skies right now. Another unseasonably cool day with winds out of the north and northwest out of Canada at 11 miles an hour, humidity at 52%. And still the dew point, the measure of moisture in the air, relatively dry, and that's staving away most rain. There are still a few showers north of Philadelphia, and really, in fact, I think northern Delaware may be getting a couple of these. They don't show up too well on the radar, but east of Elkton, perhaps, and then Ocean City, New Jersey, a couple of showers. But around our neck of the woods, we've just been dealing with primarily clouds, and not a whole lot out there until you get way out into the western United States. Got some wind advisories and some rain out that way, but That's miles and miles from here. For now, cool. Again, a little disturbance. That's our latest weather maker swinging through with a couple of those showers off to our north and east generally, keeping the temperatures cool as well at 63 with the clouds in Baltimore, 58 at Cockeysville, real fall feel, 59 at Westminster, and temperatures close to 60 south of the city. Look at that wall of warmth, though, out to our west. That's going to be coming our way for tomorrow and the next several days after through about Thursday, Friday. And then the next weather maker moving through the Great Lakes. Again, it's kind of in the Intermountain West now. We get the potential of some of those showers arriving by later on Friday and potentially could even wet down the first half of the weekend a bit. Now out in the tropics, there's a high chance of development now that could end up moving towards the Antilles. This could be our next tropical depression. Looks like it scrapes near the Antilles and then boom, northbound and away from the United States, way out into the open Atlantic. So that's good news for us. But around here, again, the future scan says some clouds. There could be a stray spritz here or there through about sunset. Thereafter clears out. Chilly overnight, temperatures in the 40s. Tomorrow, finally, a day with some more sunshine, and it looks like temperatures warming up, too. Look at those mid to upper 60s, too close to 70 degrees. 73, great-looking day on Thursday. 72 on Friday. Most of the day okay, but some late rain perhaps bleeding into Saturday with some scattered showers in time for the Ravens game. Dries out, but cool. 65 stays in the 60s into early next week.
Jonathan, thanks. Does the state really need to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on security details? Fox 45 pressing state leaders on why they're spending so much more than other governments on protection. The mayoral race heating up, the key issues one candidate is focusing on as they launch their campaign.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
Now that the Orioles season is over, all eyes forward. Most of the club, as far as the young talent, will be back. Others for the Major League's best farm system will join the O's. And don't forget, some of those baby birds can always be traded to get talent. Their top prospect, Jackson Holliday, he's off limits. After what he did in the minors in his first full season, his MLB debut will be in 2024, most likely. Holliday at 19 ripped through A-ball all the way to AAA on 4 different teams, .323 batting average, 12 home runs, and 75 RBIs.
He'll be at Major League Spring Training, and he was last year. He hasn't had a He didn't have a full season anywhere because he moved so fast, but he hasn't been in AAA terribly long, but he did pretty well. I think when you're 19 and then you're 20, it's 1 year, but that's a lot of aging and physical development. I can't wait to see what he looks like in spring training. Look forward to having him there. He's going to have a chance to make the team.
Holiday will be 20 this December. Pitchers and catchers report mid-February for spring training, and the full squad less than a week after that.
And remember, you can still follow the latest postseason action with the Rip and Rock podcast. Rocco and Ryan Ripken break down every playoff match with new episodes every Monday. You can stream them anywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, we are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. You can catch all the action right here on Fox 45. A Baltimore City school police officer promoted while the FBI investigated him. Project Baltimore demanding answers about why it was allowed to happen. And more than $600,000 a year to protect top lawmakers. Fox 45 News pressing leaders for answers on why the state is spending so much money on protection details.
The state is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on security for some members of the General Assembly.
That's right. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live with a breakdown of the numbers for us. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mary and Kai, when we questioned House Speaker Adrienne Jones in September, we noticed that she had a security detail with her. And so it had us wondering how many other members of the General Assembly are getting a detail and what is it costing taxpayers?
I have a 12:30 got to be in.
Maryland House Speaker Adrienne Jones seen here, leaving a community event with a security detail, doubling as her driver. Jones, along with Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson, two of the legislative leaders afforded security protection at the taxpayers' expense. The Maryland State Police Executive Protection provides security for statewide elected offices and a few others. According to the state police, cost for the Legislative Security Division comes out to $633,000. But state police not providing clarity on if that $633,000 is just for Ferguson and Jones.
If a couple legislators want the security detail, more are going to want that.
Taxpayer advocate David Williams argues transparency is key when it comes to Maryland's budget, and expanding who's afforded protection could put more pressure on the purse strings. When pressed for specifics on the detail offerings in Maryland, Fox 45 News was told that information risks safety.
It is critical that there's transparency, and you can do this without risking the security of any of the members of the legislature.
Fox 45 News research team looking at these 7 states. Pennsylvania only providing protection for the governor, lieutenant governor, and their families. Utah providing protection for the governor and police at the Capitol complex when the legislature is in session. Nevada providing limited protective services. Ohio only providing protection for the governor outside the State House. In Florida, 24-hour protection is not afforded to leaders of the House and Senate. Security and transportation offered when requested by several leaders. While in Virginia, state police only protects the governor. While Maryland's is staying tight-lipped on the details, Williams argues the public deserves to know.
Taxpayers need to know just what the money is being spent on. State legislators can't hide behind the security detail, whether it's fiscally or physically.
Now, locally, there are different regulations in place that spell out who gets a security detail, if at all, and what the budget is. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Police have found one of 5 teens who went missing over the weekend. Investigators located 17-year-old Benjamin Bundy. Bundy left the skate zone on Crane Highway in Crofton with 4 other teens between the ages of 13 and 16 on Saturday, then went missing. Police say they left willingly and did not seem to be in any danger while leaving. Anyone with information on their location should contact Baltimore police.
Well, new information on the suspicious white powder sent to a Baltimore courthouse yesterday. Police say there were no toxins in the letter. Hazmat crews responded to the Cummings courthouse around 2:30 yesterday afternoon. We opened the letter with the powder inside. 3 workers near the envelope were isolated and taken to the hospital for testing. The Baltimore City Police Department working with the USPS, the ATF, FBI, and other public safety agencies to track down who sent the letter.
A new report says the State Highway Administration of Maryland is partially to blame for a deadly Beltway crash in March. 6 construction workers were killed when 2 cars collided on I-695 after traveling a high rate of speed, flipping one of the vehicles into a work zone. Now, Maryland's Occupational Safety and Health Department says the SHA didn't post traffic control signs warning drivers about the work zone. SHA officials are pushing back on the violation, saying those signs are not required by state and federal law, but former employees say the decision not to post signs puts workers at risk.
Not every decision is based on something on page 28. Sometimes you have to use your own brain and put 2 and 2 together and say, this is not a good situation. To have nothing is just insane.
Well, the State Highway Administration maintains the cause of the crash was irresponsible driving from the person who hit the workers. Investigators say both drivers were moving at more than 100 miles an hour before the crash.
A Baltimore City Schools police officer promoted while under investigation by the FBI.
That officer is now facing federal charges. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the school system apparently knew about the investigation and promoted him anyway.
These are the general orders for the Baltimore City Schools Police, the rules that govern everything the department does, including promoting officers. According to these orders, officers are selected for promotion by the chief of school police, who picks from a list of eligible candidates. That seems to make sense. But what doesn't make sense to many, including this former federal prosecutor,
taxpayers should be upset by that kind of mismanagement,
is who city schools chose to promote this past April.
Do you think you should say something now to your players?
Officer Lawrence Smith.
So I was astonished that would occur by any publicly funded entity to act so inexcusably.
Smith is currently facing 15 felony counts related to alleged tax evasion and fraudulently obtaining more than $215,000 in overtime.
I had several reactions.
Harvey Eisenberg is a retired assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Maryland, the same office that indicted Smith.
And to sustain on the confidence that the public should have in its public officials.
Officer Smith was arrested last month in September, but his indictment was not a surprise. More than a year ago, in August 2022, Project Baltimore first reported that FBI agents were inside North Avenue.
The subject of that search was Dunbar High School football coach Lawrence Smith,
investigating Smith for payroll irregularities. A few months later, in January 2023, Project Baltimore cross-referenced Smith's overtime forms with his own social media posts. We found multiple occasions where Smith claimed to be working, but apparently was doing something else, like driving a boat on the Chesapeake Bay, on vacation in Michigan, or coaching football.
Chris Pabst from FOX45.
At the time, we took our findings directly to City Schools leadership.
How can a police officer who's driving a boat be putting in a form for overtime?
We can come this way.
Can the school system explain that?
Yet, just 3 months later, in April, Smith was promoted to corporal. This is the internal City Schools email announcing the promotion. We obtained it from a source inside North Avenue. This email, sent by the chief of police, says Smith worked in his former role with distinction. Copied on this internal email announcing Smith's promotion is John Davis. Who is John Davis? Well, he's Baltimore City's chief of schools, one of CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises' top officials. If the chief of schools knew Smith was promoted, it seems likely Dr. Santelises would have known, especially since Santelises and Smith know each other. District leaders will not grant Project Baltimore an interview on this topic.
Is there a motion to approve?
So we went to a recent school board meeting, in part
Dr. Santelises
to speak with the CEO about Smith's promotion. While we were there, 2 police officers stood by as Andre Riley, the district's head of communications, refused to answer our questions.
No, I want to know why Lawrence Smith was given a promotion when the school system knew he was being investigated by the FBI. We had already run our stories when he was on a boat collecting overtime, in Michigan collecting overtime, and the school system still gave him a promotion. But we just want an answer as to why. I think taxpayers deserve an answer. You don't?
I think that you can stand right here.
Eisenberg told Project Baltimore in his 40-year career, he has never seen someone get promoted while under an active and very public FBI investigation.
It diminishes the public confidence in at least the city of Baltimore, or specifically the school system, since they took no action whatsoever. In fact, they took action that actually was a reverse of what they should have done.
It's not just Smith's promotion raising concerns. He's accused of collecting more than $200,000 in fraudulent overtime, which the school district approved and paid. Who signed off on those hours? And why didn't it raise any red flags? That part of the story, Wednesday. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Education will be a top issue for voters in the 2024 Baltimore mayoral election. This week, the race is heating up as former Mayor Sheila Dixon makes her campaign official. She filed her paperwork last night at the Baltimore City Board of Elections, cementing herself as one of the main challengers to Mayor Brandon Scott. A recent Goucher poll surveyed 700 Baltimore residents in a hypothetical Democratic primary between Dixon and Scott. Dixon came out on top with 39% of the support, while Mayor Scott had 27%. It is worth noting Bob Wallace is also running for mayor again, this time as a Democrat. He received 20% of the vote as an independent back in 2020.
Sheila Dixon's filing comes after she opened her official campaign headquarters on North Howard Street this week. She says crime and education are her top priorities.
Crime definitely Number one, people have to feel safe no matter where they live in this city. We have to make sure that our young people understand that a public education can be excellent for them to get out of, if it's poverty or whatever situation they're in. Education can make that difference in our lives.
Well, Fox 45 News reached out to both Dixon and Scott to participate in a series of town halls leading up to the Democratic primary. Dixon has agreed to attend a Fox 45 News town hall next Tuesday, October 24th, where she's going to answer your questions and share her plans to address the biggest issues facing Baltimore. Mayor Scott has not yet responded.
I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. Short-staffed and stressed, we're looking at the mental impacts of staffing shortages on first responders.
Up next, Halloween can be difficult for children with sensory issues. How parents can best plan for a safe Halloween for their children.
And perhaps you're thinking of a run or jog this evening. Temperatures looking good for it. Nice and cool, low to mid 60s, even some 50s perhaps by 7 p.m. Could see a sprinkle here or there. We're tracking some of those, and when it could be in the 70s again. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
First responders are facing severe staffing shortages across the country, and that's taking a toll on their mental health. The National Desk, Angela Brown, breaks down the issues they're facing.
The title says it all, stressed and short-staffed. A 2023 Lexipos survey. Sergeant Betsy Smith, spokesperson for the National Police Association.
9 out of every 10 police departments in this country is short-staffed.
Officers wearing many hats, patrolling, catching criminals, and dealing with people with mental illness.
Very often, law enforcement gets stuck, if you will, with having to deal with mental health issues and 2,000 other things that we have to deal with.
While at the same time, mental health issues for first responders may be going ignored. The Lexipos survey of 9,400 first responders, 67% of firefighters stress levels negatively impacting other aspects of health. The same is true for 51% of EMS professionals. For police, there are broader impacts, including denied time off, requirement of overtime shifts, and on-duty safety. Some police departments are prioritizing mental health. The Reading Police Department is implementing yearly wellness check-ins for officers.
And obviously, officers are no different than anybody else, but some of the trauma that they're seeing, and I think it's important that we give them the resources to help process, some of the traumatic events that they see so they can continue on with their lives.
That same survey found that 87% of police officers work in departments that are short-staffed, and half of all first responders want to leave their job in the next 5 years. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
All right, well, we start with some cool weather and some clouds, but it looks like a warming trend is on the way, even starting tomorrow near 70, and then we have to watch a weekend weathermaker, potential of some rain later Friday, and maybe even some showers holding over into Saturday, so may have to have some indoor plans there for the first half of the weekend. Another cool down coming also by the time we get to the Ravens game on Sunday. Right now, you see some of those clouds hanging tough. On our weather camera network, you see that's Eastport Yacht Club in the background, 63, mostly cloudy skies, winds out of the north-northwest at 11, and our humidity at 52%. A very fall autumnal look there heading down Anne Arundel County way. HT radar showing a couple of these sprinkles and light showers up toward Philadelphia, New York, up into New England, Boston, even as far south as northern Delaware, just east of Elkton. But around here in Baltimore hasn't been a whole lot in terms of anything coming from the sky, but it's not out of the question there could be a stray sprinkle out of some of this. Probably not quite as numerous as the light showers that we saw yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening. I can't tell you, though, this disturbance that's kind of swinging through, it's keeping that weather cool. And again, some extra clouds as well. The next weather maker way out there west of Minneapolis, and eventually will traverse east and give us a risk of some showers end of the week into the early weekend. For now, temperatures even in the upper 50s at Columbia as well as Westminster. Real fall special today with temperature at 63 in Baltimore. Jackets needed at Stevensville as well as in Annapolis, right around 60. Where's the warmth? Well, there it is. Central and western portion of the country, especially just east of the Rockies. Denver right now, 83. We've got a temperature of 80 at Omaha, and this wave of warmer weather is going to be heading on east. Unfortunately, too, what's going to come with it is that next system. You see there, it's not here tomorrow. Sunshine, temperatures near 70. In fact, we enjoy a nice day on Thursday, too. But waiting in the wings by later Friday is that next system and some of those showers coming later in the day, and especially Friday night, perhaps into Saturday as well. Now down in the tropics, looks like we got a little satellite outage here, but nonetheless a high chance of development coming out of this, which could become our next tropical depression. Looks like it could potentially glance right by the Antilles, and then eventually most computer models take it out into the open Atlantic. Now around here, overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, by midnight or so, most of those clouds and any sprinkles clearing out. I think tomorrow morning you're going to need jackets again, mid to upper 40s. Get those sleeves changing though, right? With the cool temperatures in the morning and the mild afternoons, will be near 70 for tomorrow. 45 becoming partly cloudy, cool overnight. 67 partly cloudy skies. Good day for walking the dog tomorrow, taking a jog. 72, nice day on Thursday. A little yard cleanup perhaps. Late shower on Friday. That goes into Saturday with on and off showers. 68 and a cool down into the late weekend and early next week, just in time for the Ravens game.
Halloween is 2 weeks away, and one Harvard student showed us his spirit by paddling across a river in a giant pumpkin. Benjamin Chang crossed the Massachusetts River in the 1,500-pound gourd to raise money for Harvard's student-led bioengineering lab. Carving out the pumpkin took more than 2 hours, but Chang hopes the feat will demonstrate the wonders of biology and inspire people to think outside the pumpkin. With Halloween approaching, children are excited, but some parents are getting a little nervous. Psychologists and some analysts, Dr. Matt Edelstein, joined us this morning to talk about kids with sensory issues and how parents can make it a fun night.
So I always talk to parents about planning the route, thinking about where they want to go ahead of time. And most families have their stuff out weeks before. Right. So you can kind of see, well, that's going to be a good fit for my kid. That's not going to be the best fit, and sort of tailor the route based on what you know about your child.
Dr. Edelstein also said that some families have been putting out a blue pumpkin to signal that their home is free of flashing lights and jumping scares. Well, our viewers are getting into the holiday spirit as well here at Fox 45 News. You can see on the left, little Archie is all dressed up in this photo from Craig Vey, and on the right, Chico the Poodle is a not-so-scary clown from Samuel Lackey. Very good. We'd like to see how you're celebrating Halloween. Make sure to send us your pictures and videos by scanning this QR code and heading to foxbaltimore.com/chime-in. Coming up at 5 o'clock, the state of the economy top on the minds as tensions continue in the Middle East. The latest report painting an optimistic picture. And getting rid of fall leaves can be a bit of a struggle. We break down the best products to do that. You know, getting rid of leaves and getting your house ready for the fall and winter is here pretty much. And the right leaf blower can make a back-breaking job a lot easier. Tom Rogers shows us experts at Consumer Reports who blow through hundreds of pounds of leaves every year.
When it comes to fall cleanup, Alex Joyce has a system, and it includes 4 different types of leaf blowers.
3 acres, lots of trees, lots of leaves. Fall is challenging.
Maybe your yard is easier, but if you are ready to upgrade from a rake, Consumer Reports has some advice.
In our testing, we routinely find that a handheld leaf blower is perfect for most yards. It's a step up from a rake, but it's not as big or bulky or as expensive as backpack or wheeled blowers.
Consumer Reports put every leaf blower through the same tough tests. Testers weigh and strategically pile leaves into a marked area, then time how long each blower takes to clear the pile. Consumer Reports also assesses how thoroughly each blower removes the leaves often embedded in the grass.
Beyond performance, you want to consider the weight of any handheld leaf blower. The heaviest models in our ratings can weigh nearly twice as much as the lightest models, and that can make a big difference even after just a few minutes.
For tiny lawns or patios, this Ryobi corded electric may be all you need, but a cord has its limits. A battery-powered blower can cover as much area as you need. Consider this recommended Ego, which earns impressive scores for loosening and sweeping away leaves. This skill is also a smart buy, holding its own against blowers that cost twice as much. And a final tip from Alex.
We have a lot of masks left over, and I always wear a mask when I'm blowing because of all the debris.
Alex always remembers his hearing and eye protection. Now, in the Consumer Reports test, battery-powered handhelds outperform the best gasoline handhelds. Plus, they start at the touch of a button instead of pulling the cord. But they do have their limits, like overheating and limits on battery usage. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
All right, a look at your weekend forecast. I think for Friday, if you're going to be headed to the pumpkin patch or maybe doing some fall activities after school, not great. Could have some showers that develop by evening. I think the first half of the day is okay. Saturday could be kind of showery. And then I think on Sunday for the Ravens game, although kind of blustery and cool, we'll see some clearing skies. So again, if you're going to the pumpkin patch, 72 with that late rain on Friday, not great on Saturday. Your best day, although breezy and cool, high 65 for Sunday.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5, a legal victory for residents impacted by mistakes made from a medical waste company, the criminal violations it faces. President Biden is heading to Israel as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues, the continuing questions about refugees.
City Council members voting to hold a hearing into the juvenile crime crisis. Fox 45 News pressing leaders on what could help deter the ongoing trend.
A murder at a gas station in Columbia rocks that community. Our team investigates what led to the tragedy.
Plus, our coverage of the fallout in the Middle East continues, why universities across the country are coming under heavy scrutiny.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We cannot keep ignoring this.
It takes an approach where everybody is at the table.
The Baltimore City Council passes a resolution aimed to address juvenile crime, but critics argue a resolution is not a solution. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. The calls for change come as we see more brazen acts of violence bleed into the counties. Most recently, a shooting at a gas station in Columbia, Howard County.
Fox 45 News has extensive live team coverage, starting with Alexa Ashwell. She joins us with the growing concern that not enough is being done to address youth crime. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, Mary, and while that resolution passed, it will be at least 30 days before a meeting even happens. And then even then, what real solutions may come out of it? That's the question that we're asking. Baltimore City Councilman Robert Stokes, who interpellation yesterday mentioned the 15-year-old who was charged with attempted murder, that victim just 12 years old. At the time of the teen's arrest, police say he was already in the custody of juvenile services for another unrelated gun crime. This resolution will call some city agencies to the table to discuss the drivers and solutions to juvenile crime. But political analyst John Deedy argues there's little meat in a resolution. You may recall last month, Councilman Zeke Cohen introduced a resolution to address the spike in auto thefts. Agencies have yet to come to the table on that, and since then, 1,400 more auto thefts have been reported.
We've been talking about these problems for a long time. Where's the meat? Where is the actual, here's the policy idea we're going to put in place? And the problem is, after a while, people are tired of talking their heads off, and people want to see a solution to a problem, not the fact that we're meeting to discuss the problem.
Stokes says he wants to give each agency at least 30 days to prepare, but again, a date has yet to be set. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. The City Council has called for informational hearings in the past. That includes in the wake of the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, but rarely have those hearings led to concrete policy change. Now, when it comes to public safety, more than 300 action items have come before the council this year. Only 2 have been adopted.
Every member of the city council has a responsibility to the citizens to look deep into these problems and not just talk about them, but actually figure out why things are broken inside of the city and come up with solutions to fix those problems.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the city council needs to do more to address crime? To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, state lawmakers also facing questions about their handling of the juvenile crime crisis. We have heard from more than a dozen top prosecutors across Maryland who say their hands are tied. They represent 5.4 million people, about 87% of Maryland's population. They're taking issue with 2 laws, one limiting the charges that children 13 and under can face. The other prevents police from questioning juvenile suspects without attorney and parent permission.
Seeing like a revolving door, the same juvenile offenders over and over again, coming in the door and then going back out the door to continue to engage in their nefarious activities. There's not a whole lot we can do about it because we're hamstrung by the laws that are in place.
You can protect the child and also protect society. If we deter that communication, we inhibit our ability to address crime.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
And it's not just prosecutors. Michelle Hines' family was torn apart when her 16-year-old son, Isaiah Carter, was shot and killed in Baltimore this March. Now she's coming to Fox 45 News saying something needs to change.
If he has to be a martyr, that's going to be on my terms because I'm fighting to make sure there's some change in his name. Given society is really confusing now. But when we were at that age, we knew right from wrong. They know right from wrong. The difference is now we've given them this leeway of, I can keep being wrong.
Well, Fox 45 News sent questions to Governor Moore's office on the juvenile crime crisis. We asked, when will the governor enact changes surrounding juvenile justice, and why is he waiting for the legislature to begin in January to act? The governor's office responded, saying his administration is committed to explore all possible options to curb gun violence epidemic. But the reply didn't directly answer our questions about the legislature potentially passing juvenile crime laws before the next legislative session.
And if you want to contact your state lawmakers about public safety, House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are 2 of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. Phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen. In the past 24 hours, at least 2 people have been killed. Another 6 are injured across 3 communities in separate counties. In Baltimore County, a man was stabbed late last night. Police responded to a scene in Essex just after 10. They found a 63-year-old victim who later died at the hospital. In Anne Arundel County, 4 people were shot at a Severin shopping center. Happened around 8:40 at Reese Road and Pioneer Drive. Police say a group of suspects fired shots at the victims while they were standing in front of a store. Their injuries are not life-threatening.
After being named one of America's safest cities, a fatal shooting has some people in Colombia questioning their safety and security. Last night, shots were fired outside of a gas station. One person was killed, 2 others hurt in a quiet community now on edge. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has the latest on the investigation and shares concerns from some of those residents. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, that fatal shooting certainly took many in this community by surprise, as you mentioned. Just this month, Columbia, Maryland was ranked the 2nd safest city in America, a ranking some residents are now questioning. It doesn't look like a crime scene.
This is a very nice neighborhood.
No police presence, damage, or caution tape in sight.
It's pleasant, it's calm, it's peaceful, the people are nice.
And according to this Wallet Hub study, ranking Columbia, Maryland as the 2nd safest city in America for the 2nd year in a row, this Exxon gas station on Fortland Garth Road is just about the last place one might expect senseless violence to strike.
I'm shocked.
But last night, a triple shooting, leaving 1 dead and 2 others suffering critical injuries, shattering this quiet community's sense of security.
To hear that happen, it's disheartening.
It makes me uncomfortable because I have a son that comes to this gas station, and I come to the gas station.
Wanting to raise her 2 sons in a safe environment, Lori Childer says she thought she left crime behind 13 years ago when she moved here from New York City.
This was the safe place, but now I guess crime is everywhere.
I don't see a lot of police around here, unfortunately. And maybe they need to patrol this area a little bit more.
It remains unclear what caused the shooting, and police have yet to make any arrests.
This is sad.
With little to no answers, residents living in seemingly one of the nation's safest places.
It doesn't make me feel so secure.
Now questioning where, if anywhere, is truly safe.
It's scary. No matter where you go, it's in everybody's neighborhood.
Now this evening, police have identified the deceased victim as 24-year-old Baltimore City resident Dylan Perez. Anyone with information in this case is asked to call the Howard County Police Department. They are offering a $5,000 reward for anyone with information that can lead to an arrest. Reporting live in Howard County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Breaking tonight, former owners of a Baltimore company pled guilty to dozens of criminal violations.
Maryland's Attorney General says Curtis Bay Energy, which operates the largest medical waste incinerator in the country, must pay nearly $2 million in fines for harming the environment, the South Baltimore community, and threatening public health.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson joins us live with what we're learning about the case. Amy?
Yes, Mary Kai, you've likely seen them at the doctor's office or even at the hospital. Those red bags or the red trash cans, even containers marked biohazard. That's what this case is all about. And Maryland's Attorney General today says that former ownership at Curtis Bay Energy improperly disposed of medical waste on a routine basis. State officials today said this investigation spanned 3 years, and investigators noted a systemic, unsafe handling, transport, and disposal of special medical waste that was, quote, insufficiently incinerated. This facility reportedly takes in medical waste from multiple states and Canada. The AG said because special medical waste carries the risk of transmitting diseases, it must be reduced to ash before it's disposed of. But investigators today said employees would overload those incinerators at the South Baltimore facility to process medical waste faster, sometimes at the direction of previous management.
They regularly fail to properly burn or incinerate or treat the medical waste. Instead, as you see in our evidence photos, they dispose of the medical waste as mounds of raw or uncooked medical waste.
Employees regularly observed insufficiently burned special medical waste such as red bags, surgical gloves, medical supplies, bedding, and more.
Now, investigators said they documented the company illegally transporting this raw medical waste to commercial landfills in Virginia. At times, investigators said medical waste leaked from those trucks while they were en route to those landfills. And the AG said today investigators witnessed these criminal violations in several cases in the weeks leading into the COVID-19 pandemic back in late 2019 and early 2020.
And Amy, we learned Curtis Bay Energy was apparently purchased by new owners in early 2021. What do we know about the fines and punishment handed down to previous leadership?
Yeah, you can imagine pretty serious violations mean pretty serious repercussions as well. In addition to 2 years of probation, a judge handed down a sentence ordering Curtis Bay Energy to pay $1 million to the Maryland Clean Water Fund. And the company also ordered to set up a $750,000 fund to protect the communities and the environment around that South Baltimore facility. So far, one former employee at this company has pleaded guilty to criminal charges related to this case, and another court proceeding for another former employee. Those court proceedings continue. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Now, in a statement, Curtis Bay Energy says the violations it's being fined for were committed while the company was under different ownership and that it's fully cooperated with the state's investigation. The company also promises to do more in terms of preventative measures to avoid further pollution. Here's a live look from our nation's capital. That is the U.S. Capitol right now, where Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan comes up short, losing the first House vote for a new speaker. 200 Republican members voted in favor of Jordan, but 20 voted for other Republican lawmakers to take the gavel. All 212 Democrats present voted for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy's election took 15 votes. Without a leader, lawmakers are unable to do their jobs, which has members on both sides nervous.
This right now is paralyzing. In essence, the House of Representatives is in a shutdown right now.
If Congressman Jordan does ultimately fail to win the gavel, it is up in the air what Republicans will do going forward.
After losing the first vote, Congressman Jordan says he'll try again.
Are you going back to the floor today?
But that's the plan.
Jordan is currently running back and forth between the House Majority Whip's office and the Speaker's office holding meetings. He's working to shore up more support from his Republican colleagues, 20 of whom voted for someone else for Speaker. Jordan's office originally thought they were about 18 to 10 holdouts before the vote. Now, some of the holdouts say they may vote for him in the next round, while others say they'll never vote for the Ohio Republican.
He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world.
Still had President Biden officially making the trip to Israel, his goals for the visit as the fighting continues.
Americans can't stop spending. I'm Atrell Nashar with why strong retail sales could prolong the pain of high interest rates.
And the commute forecast into this evening takes temperatures from the 60s back into the 50s. Some patchy clouds could even have an outside chance of a sprinkle, but some warmer weather is ahead. I'll let you know when 70s return and when we could have some weekend rain. Wettest forecast coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
Now that the Orioles season is over, all eyes forward. Most of the club, as far as the young talent, will be back. Others for the Major League's best farm system will join the O's. And don't forget, some of those baby birds can always be traded to get talent. Their top prospect, Jackson Holliday, he's off limits. After what he did in the minors in his first full season, his MLB debut will be in 2024, most likely. Holliday, at 19, ripped through A-ball all the way to AAA on 4 different teams, .323 batting average, 12 home runs, and 75 RBIs.
He'll be at Major League Spring Training. I mean, he was last year. He didn't have a full season anywhere because he moved so fast, but he hasn't been in AAA terribly long, but he did pretty well. I think when you're 19 and then you're 20, it's 1 year, but that's a lot of aging and physical development. I can't wait to see what he looks like in spring training. Look forward to having him there. He's going to have a chance to make the team.
Holliday will be 20 this December. Pitchers and catchers report mid-February for spring training, and the full squad less than a week after that.
And remember, you can still follow the latest postseason action with the Rip and Rock podcast. Rocco and Ryan Rifkin break down every playoff matchup with new episodes every Monday. You can stream them anywhere you get your podcasts. And we are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. You can catch all the action right here on Fox 45. Well, taking a live look over Camden Yards tonight, it has been a beautiful fall week so far. It's only Tuesday, but we like to count our blessings when we get them. But it looks like we could be seeing the warmer temperatures make a brief comeback. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers, which I think adds to the beautiful fall, right?
Yeah, I know you like the warmer weather a little bit more, Mary. And, we are going to get some of that, I think, next couple of days. Today, though, we are still tracking some clouds and a couple of stray sprinkles around, especially north and east. It's more so clouds for most of us. Warming trend, though, on the way, as Mary mentioned, could be near 70 for tomorrow and into the 70s by the end of the week. Tracking then a weekend weather maker that could give us some rain chances here for Saturday, and then another cool down for the Ravens game Sunday. Toyota Cedar Harbor Skycam, mostly cloudy now. Winds out of the west and northwest. A little blustery breeze at about 10 miles an hour. You take a look at the HD radar. There are some of those showers and sprinkles, very, very isolated and light, mainly north and east of Maryland. Some as close as almost Cecil County over the past couple of hours, but even those look like they've dried out. So you could see a spatter on the windshield. But outside of that, for the most part, I think we are pretty quiet for the remainder of the afternoon into this evening. This little yellow line, a little what we call trough in weather speak, but really it's a disturbance or a little weather maker, swings down to the south. It actually gave us some showers yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, and continues to, again, give us that threat as it continues to make a slight push off to the east for this late afternoon. I think it's mainly, again, just clouds and the cool temperatures that persist. We're at 61 here in Baltimore. That's after a high of only 64, about 5 degrees below average, actually about 3 to 5 degrees, we'll say, below average. 59 for Cockeysville, 57 at Westminster, 58 at Columbia. Temperatures 50s near 60 along the eastern shore. Where's the warmth in the country? Well, it's along the east side of the Rockies. Temperatures in the 70s, even some mid 80s right now in Denver. That warmth in a wave is going to move eastbound, so it won't be as hot, if you will, as we head into tomorrow as well as Thursday in advance of the next weather maker. But temperatures do recover likely into the 70s, and then by later Friday, some showers and some on and off rain potentially for Saturday. Out in the tropics, there's an 80% chance of tropical development out of this big bad batch of cloud cover that's well east of the Antilles. Eventually, that could maybe as a tropical depression or tropical storm move towards the Antilles, but then eventually get diverted north and eventually back out into the open portion of the Atlantic. So into this evening, temperatures falling from the 60s back into the 50s. We'll have some patchy clouds. Most rain, again, is off to the east. I think that diminishes overnight. We are cool. Temperatures low to mid 40s by tomorrow morning. And then by tomorrow afternoon, nice looking day once again, and a little bit warmer as we go with highs back well into the 60s to near 70, 72 on Thursday, 72 Friday. Late rain moves in, some on and off showers or rain on Saturday, 68, breezy cool for the Ravens game, 65 Sunday, and then it stays unseasonably cool, but not too much below average, low to mid 60s early next week.
Jonathan, coming up after the break, the state of the economy top of mind as new reports give a closer look at consumer spending, the warning from top officials.
President Biden heads to Israel facing both political and physical risks. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington to explain coming up.
Well, new retail sales data from the Commerce Department shows Americans aren't letting inflation slow down their spending. Many analysts predict shoppers will keep up that spending through the holidays. But as national correspondent Audra El-Nashar reports, it's not doing any favors for the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation.
American shoppers once again catching economists by surprise. September retail sales growth was more than twice as high as expected, up 0.7% from August, according to the Census Bureau, outpacing September's monthly inflation rate of 0.4%. A newly released Deloitte survey of more than 4,000 U.S. consumers shows shoppers have come to expect higher prices.
We're seeing about 72% of the shoppers are expecting to see inflation carry forward and expect to see higher prices.
Robust consumer demand, not entirely good news for Wall Street, as it could make the case to the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer in order to bring down inflation.
This is the first year we're actually seeing spend exceed what it has been since 2019, 2018. Shoppers are indicating like, hey, I'm going to spend more this holiday season, but they're also aware of the fact that their dollars don't go as far as they used to in this inflationary environment.
One sector hit harder by current conditions, housing. The National Association of Home Builders says mortgage rates well above 7% are to blame for plummeting builder confidence and slowing buyer traffic.
An entirely separate threat to the economy could come from rapidly developing AI technology. At least that's the warning from Gary Gensler, chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
In an interview with the Financial Times, Gensler says a financial crisis in the next decade is nearly unavoidable without AI regulation. His worry is firms basing decisions on the same AI models will engage in herd behavior, undermining financial stability. In the near term, though, optimism is picking up. The latest quarterly survey of economists by the Wall Street Journal shows a new consensus: the U.S. is likely to avoid a recession. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Najjar reporting.
Well, new details emerging 7 months after one of Maryland's deadliest car crashes. The information prompting questions of how it could have been avoided.
Powerful alumni and big donors critical of universities' responses to the ongoing war in Israel, pulling their support. I'm Kayla Gaskins on Capitol Hill with that story straight ahead.
The state is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on security for some members of the General Assembly.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has a breakdown of the data.
When we questioned House Speaker Adrienne Jones back in September, we noticed that she had a security detail. And it had us wondering how many other elected leaders have a detail and what is it costing taxpayers?
But I have a 1230 got to be in.
Maryland House Speaker Adrienne Jones seen here, leaving a community event with a security detail, doubling as her driver. Jones, along with Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson, two of the legislative leaders afforded security protection at the taxpayers' expense. The Maryland State Police Executive Protection provides security for statewide elected offices and a few others. According to the state police, cost for the Legislative Security Division comes out to $633,000. But state police not providing clarity on if that $633,000 is just for Ferguson and Jones.
If a couple legislators want the security detail, more are going to want that.
Taxpayer advocate David Williams argues transparency is key when it comes to Maryland's budget, and expanding who's afforded protection could put more pressure on the purse strings. When pressed for specifics on the detail offerings in Maryland, Fox 45 News was told that information risks safety.
It is critical that there's transparency, and you can do this without risking the security of any of the members of the legislature.
Fox 45 News research team looking at these 7 states. Pennsylvania only providing protection for the governor, lieutenant governor, and their families. Utah providing protection for the governor and police at the Capitol complex when the legislature is in session. Nevada providing limited protective services. Ohio only providing protection for the governor outside the State House. In Florida, 24-hour protection is not afforded to leaders of the House and Senate. Security and transportation offered when requested by several leaders. While in Virginia, state police only protects the governor. While Maryland is staying tight-lipped on the details, Williams argues the public deserves to know.
Taxpayers need to know just what the money is being spent on. State legislators can't hide behind the security detail, whether it's fiscally or physically.
Locally, there are different regulations in place to spell out who gets a detail, if anyone, and what the budget is. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
After more than 6 months after 6 construction workers died in a crash on the Baltimore Beltway, Fox 45 News has obtained a state report which accuses the State Highway Administration of a serious violation. Jeff Abel has the story you're seeing first on Fox.
It was one of the deadliest crashes in this state's history, and it happened in March on the Baltimore Beltway near I-70 when a car came crashing through a highway work zone, killing 6 workers. State investigators have long blamed speed for the deadly crash, but now we're learning that the state may have failed to warn drivers of the work zone ahead. Investigators with Maryland's Occupational Safety and Health have concluded their probe of the crash and cited the State Highway Administration with what it calls a serious violation. The violation accuses the state of failing to post traffic control signs in advance of openings in the temporary concrete barrier of the work zone to warn road users that construction vehicles may be transitioning into and out of the work zone, thus exposing employees to struck-by hazards.
To have no signing there is just negligent.
Gene Simmers is a retired engineer from the State Highway Administration.
Defies all logic of why you have advanced signing. You're to warn people of a possible situation that's not safe.
The State Highway Administration is contesting the violation, writing in a statement that the State Highway Administration advised Maryland Occupational Safety and Health that the sign was not required by the Code of Federal Regulations or the Maryland Uniform Traffic Control Devices and was unrelated to the crash. Simmers finds that hard to accept.
Not every decision is based on something on page 28. Sometimes you have to use your own brain and put 2 and 2 together and say, this is not a good situation. To have nothing is just insane.
Jeff Abel.
And that was Jeff Abel reporting. The State Highway Administration was not fined for the violation, instead ordered just to correct it. In the meantime, state leaders have now formed a work group which is studying how to make those work zones safer.
Fox 45 News continues to follow the conflict in the Middle East.
President Biden is set to visit Israel tomorrow, and the visit comes as Israel continues gearing up for a ground assault in Gaza. The Israeli military stepping up its attacks on Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip, all while the U.S. works with regional allies on the diplomatic front. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been in the region for days trying to secure the release of American hostages.
Hamas has released video of one of the hostages being held by the terrorist group in the Gaza Strip, a 21-year-old French-Israeli woman. According to CNN, the short clip shows Mia Shem lying on a bed with her right arm bandaged by someone out of the frame. She speaks into the camera saying that she was injured and taken to Gaza, and she begs to be released. Her family tells CNN they didn't know if Shem was dead or alive until that video came out. They were informed by the Israeli Defense Forces that she was kidnapped from the festival last week. There was a music festival. The family calls on world leaders to secure the release of her and the roughly 200 other hostages believed to be held captive.
That's all we want, just to get Mia back to us.
We are begging the world to bring
my baby home. She's only 21 years old.
Well, CNN can't confirm where and when that video was taken. It's the first footage released of people held in the enclave.
And fallout from the ongoing conflict is being seen around the world, from protests and rallies to an economic impact.
We have team coverage covering all angles of the war, beginning with chief political correspondent Scott Thuman.
As the death toll continued to climb Tuesday, President Biden making his way to Israel, where his Secretary of State Antony Blinken just had to retreat to a bunker due to incoming fire. Not terribly unlike a warning Biden faced while in Ukraine last February.
The president believes that this is exactly the right time to go to Israel, about the humanitarian assistance that we want to make sure gets into Gaza, about Israeli plans and intentions going forward.
As for his diplomatic role, Biden will find himself mired in controversy. While his team is trying to aid in a humanitarian crisis, the New York Times writes the administration has not criticized Israel's moves to cut off electricity and food there. But Arab leaders have protested to American officials that the blockade amounts to collective punishment and is illegal under the laws of war. Meanwhile, the U.S. trying desperately to retrieve any American hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza, and at the same time help ease Palestinian suffering.
But we have to have the assurance from Hamas that they're not going to steal the food and humanitarian relief going in and use it for military purposes. That's a negotiation taking place right now.
At least one Democrat calling for America to take in Gaza and Palestinian refugees, an idea Republicans are already rejecting. And another fight brewing over funding. How many American dollars should be provided? President Biden wants more, just as tens of billions of dollars have already gone to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
We're the United States of America, for God's sake. The most powerful nation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world. We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense.
But even as America boosts its military presence in the Middle East, the White House saying there are no current plans to put U.S. combat troops on the ground in Israel. On Capitol Hill, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, Republicans are stepping up pressure to force the Biden administration to take a harder line with Iran.
We know what to do. We've got to squeeze out any type of financial resources they're getting through that. Through also working with our G7 colleagues to make sure that we return to a posture of maximum pressure. Bone-crushing sanctions, drying up each and every dollar that is headed to their hands.
That is in reference to claims that Iran is partially responsible for Hamas's attack on Israel last week. A Wall Street Journal report suggested Iran helped put together the planned invasion, which resulted in the deaths of more than 1,300 Israelis. Close to 200 were taken hostage, but U.S. intelligence say Iranian officials were not aware of the plan. The Biden administration says Iran is complicit nonetheless, given its financial support of Hamas.
Now, in light of the conflict, protests and rallies are unfolding at universities across the nation, some even leading to arrests. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins continues our team coverage.
Some on Capitol Hill find scenes like this deeply disturbing. College students celebrating Hamas's attack on Israel. At Cornell, history professor Russell Rickford almost giddy about the terror attack.
It was exhilarating, it was energizing.
Appalled, Senator Josh Hawley calling on the DOJ to investigate funding tied to these pro-Palestinian student groups calling for the destruction of Israel. Senator Tom Cotton demanding the Department of Homeland Security deport all foreign nationals cheering on Hamas, saying federal law calls for the removal of anyone who supports terrorism. Adding Harvard students who signed a letter blaming Israel for the death of its own citizens would be a good place to start. We spoke with Harvard Law alumnus, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. What do you make of Harvard, your alma mater's response to Hamas's attack on Israel?
It's utterly shameful, and I got to say it's really sad. We've seen so many of our universities become radical leftist hotbeds, and they're inculcating this vicious anti-Semitism. The administration initially sat silent. They had nothing to say.
Former U.S. Ambassador John Huntsman blasting the response of his alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, calling their silence in the face of reprehensible evil a new low, suspending donations to the school. Another UPenn trustee resigning from the board over the school's embrace of anti-Semitism.
Are you getting any sense that these universities are hearing this message that is being sent very loudly?
You know, I don't know that they are.
Support for Israel clearer here on Capitol Hill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer promising the quick passage of a resolution sending funding to Israel, as well as the confirmation for the long-awaited ambassador to the Jewish state. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Fox 45 will bring you the latest on the war happening between Israel and Hamas. You can follow along on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. After the break, Halloween is right around the corner and safety is on the top of the mind for parents. The ways to make sure that spooky holiday is fun and safe for everyone.
Amen.